Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean that I am Professor Robert E.G. Black, and this is the Groundhog Day Project.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening.
Time.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
We are in minute 82 of Groundhog Day. It's our last full minute before we get to the final iteration of February 2nd in the film. Phil at the hospital as the minute begins. The nurse just told him sometimes people just die. He's been trying to see the old man's chart. He says, not today. No one dies in Punxsutawney today if Phil can help it. That's his goal right now. The problem is, that's not what he's supposed to be learning. He's not supposed to learn He's not supposed to still be gaming the system. Using the system to learn how to play piano, that's a self-improvement. That's good for Mary because he's paying her for the lessons. By the way, I don't think he's paying $1,000 every time. I think after the first time he figured out what her schedule was and he showed up at a time when she was free. So Sue still gets her piano lesson. He's not getting that girl kicked out every day. That would be rude and unnecessary. But he's not supposed to try to save everyone. He can save some. He saves Joey from getting his leg broken, falling out of the tree. He saves the old ladies and their flat tire. But the nurse just said, sometimes people just die. And it's like Phil's last lesson before he understands, before he is enlightened. We don't know exactly what he understands, but we can see that this is the key. This is the last lesson he has to learn. Not today. Cut to interior Tip Top Cafe, 32nd iteration of February 2nd that we see in the film. This would be roughly the same time as the last scene in the Tip Top where Phil heard the piano music while he was reading, because the same guy, who I think is dressed like a postal worker, is still at the counter reading the paper. So Phil was, in that scene, sitting over where the bigger guy over on the right is sitting now. Now Phil's over here because he needed two seats next to each other. And he's sitting with the old man. The old man's eating some soup. Phil's got a bowl of soup. The timing here, I think, is as Phil pushes, like the old man finishes the first bowl of soup and Phil pushes the second bowl in front of him and says, it's hard down there at the bottom. The old man kind of looks up and smiles and nods. He doesn't have a line. And I think it's probably better that he doesn't have lines of dialogue, because the only way it would work if he has lines of dialogue is if he has some personal wisdom to impart to Phil. But I'm not sure what that would be. The lesson Phil gets from the old man. The old man is a symbolic sort of object. He's not a person exactly, because he doesn't get to have his own point of view, his own perspective, his own dialogue. And so I think the result would have been about the same. He has some lesson he was going to teach Phil by talking, or he has a lesson to teach Phil by dying. And the universe is going with the dying one. Then the waitress comes over, and I don't think that's Doris from The Sound of the Voice. She's from behind, close to the camera, so I'm not sure who that is.
Based on her earrings and her bracelets, this is neither Doris nor Alice nor the third waitress that was around in earlier scenes.
It's someone new. So I guess we're after the breakfast shift. She says, here you go. She puts out another 2 plates with more food. There's some cantaloupe and some other stuff on the plate on the right. And the old man smiles again, seeing this food. He's happy. Phil says, thank you. And we go from this nice, bright, positive moment. Previous scene was hospital, old man is dead, though we didn't have to see him dead. Cutting to Phil is helping him, and this feels nice. Phil is doing something good. Phil is using the time loop to save a life. Cut to the 33rd iteration of Groundhog Day in the film. We're in the alley again, and the old man is unconscious on the ground, and Phil is doing CPR. Come on, Dad. Come on, Pop. Come on, Pop. Come on. Breathe, Pop. And he does this. It is a fantastic timing and editing and direction and performance by Podwell and Murray here as well, because we get the old man's last breath. It's cold enough out there, even though it's not February 2nd when they're filming this, it's actually April. It's cold enough out there that we're seeing his breath. And so we see the last breath rise, and then when the camera is low enough that we see his face again, his head is turned away from us, and we don't see another breath. And Phil gives up. He looks up into the sky, and the minute ends. There are those, of course, who are like, he looks up to the sky because he's looking at God, and this is all about God teaching him a lesson. I reject the theist version of that because it's too specific, and I don't think the film supports the specificity of it. If they'd included the scene at the church, which I think they filmed, I'm pretty sure they filmed, based on a behind-the-scenes photo, then it would be more specific, but I think they deliberately left that out to make it less specific. Harold Ramis was a Buddhist. He wasn't trying to make a Christian film. He's making a humanist film. I would point out, this might be depressing in a way, on February 2nd in 2014 when I was in Woodstock, this alley wasn't wet like movies do a lot of the time in night scenes where the cinematographer gets them to wet the road because then it reflects more light and makes the whole shot more interesting. This alley, it was not wet like that. It was covered in snow. So if the old man had died in the alley on the February 2nd that I was there for, he would have died in a few inches of snow. Even more just freezing to death than whatever else is going on here. It's sad. I talked a couple minutes ago about if we want to actually help homeless people, give them homes. But you have to be able to care. You have to be able to get past. We don't like seeing homeless people because often they are not as clean as everyone else because they don't have regular access to showers and baths. They are wearing clothes that they've had to wear every day. They can't do laundry like everyone else. And we see them as dirty, and we don't want to even notice them. We don't want to think about them. And then there's also this sort of existential, like societal existential thing where just the existence of any homeless person, one homeless person here, there's one homeless person in Punxsutawney as far as we can tell, which really sucks for Punxsutawney. You got one homeless person and you can't help him? It's a societal failing. And any time where you have to deal with someone who needs a handout, somewhere in the back of our mind, if not consciously, we know that is a failure on society's part. And if society can fail old Jedson O'Reilly here, society can fail any of us. I would like to include something that isn't in the movie. I've talked about deleted scenes many times in this season. The description of the scene is the two paramedics arrive at this alley. Phil is not there. Whenever the old man dies, it's, I guess, before Phil goes to the banquet. This is a block from the frickin' banquet. A block and a half from the banquet that this old man is dying. Phil leaves the note for the paramedics. It's a poem. And then, presumably, Phil goes about his business and goes to the banquet.
Yeah, so Jetson. It's a shame. What's this? Every night by cold bricks glow, I watch the shadow rising from this old man in the snow. At 8:02, we let it go. Keep going. At 8:02, we let it go. Wow. It's nice.
On the final iteration, which we're going to see starting next minute, Phil goes to the banquet. Phil goes to the banquet knowing the old man has died in the alley, a block and a half away. Phil left a poem on his body for the paramedics to find, and then he went to the banquet. That fucking sucks, man. I told you there was a moment in the middle of the year of watching this movie every day where it wasn't as sad when the old man died, and then it circled back around to sad, and now it is still sad every time. And it is sad to talk about because it fucking sucks. I think I had an angry blog entry when I pointed out that, as I said in this minute, there's one homeless person in Punxsutawney and no one's doing anything about it. That's bad. That's bad. I live in LA. There's lots of homeless people. That's horrible. But if you had just one and you can't fix it, that is definitely a failure on the local society. They have failed. In a differently toned film Phil would get up on stage at the banquet and point that out to them and call them hypocrites again, but this time not as a joke. Point out their failings. But this isn't that kind of film. And we are supposed to take this quiet little beat as Phil looks up as he's moving on from trying to save the old man. He's understanding what the nurse told him last minute, and so should we. So going into minute 83, we have to forget about the old man. We can't think about him. That being said, if someone you know has died recently or ever, and you still have that attachment where you go visit their grave, or you think about them on the day they died, or the anniversary of the day they died, give them a thought today. And then think about the people who are dying, think about the people who don't have resources to take care of themselves, and imagine what we could actually do to help. That's all for minute 82.
Knew you were gonna say that.
This has been a production of Lemming Drops Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drops Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, lapping, like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is. Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.
Remember when Groundhog Day was just a movie?